It's the internet. You're busy. I was gonna say it's the morning. Already off to a good start. It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for January 3rd, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Ubisoft gets slightly more specific about the release date for Star Wars Outlaws, and Square Enix leaves the blockchain talk in 2023 in favor of AI talk in 2024. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Jeff Bakalar, everybody. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yes, contrary to popular belief, I am awake before noon.
I just assumed that you were just like tucked into bed every day, just letting the day happen, and then you're like, okay, I can roll out of bed here. Like 12:30 is what I assumed.
Yeah, sometimes if I'm feeling saucy, it's not till 1 p.m. if we're being completely honest.
When is the last time that you woke up around noon?
Oh, dude, I don't think it's ever happened. I mean, maybe college. Like, if you're sleeping at noon, it's because you've traveled internationally, right? It's because maybe when I went to Europe, the last time I was in Europe, I like slept till 1 o'clock just because of that reason. Never in the same time zone. Come on, I'm a damn adult.
I occasionally will have the I stayed up till like 6 a.m. doing something stupid, hanging out with friends, and then I'll sleep till like 11:30, 12. That'll happen every once in a while, but not very. Even these days, even when I'm staying up real late, which that would be like 1:30, 2 a.m. I'm still getting up like 8 a.m. Not even just because of the kids. A lot of times I'm still up before the kids, so it's just at this point it's ingrained in me. Get up early and get the day going.
It's just that natural like cadence, right?
Yeah,
like, that's what it is.
At a certain point, yeah, it's built into the brain. It just happens. How's your 2024 going so far, Jeff?
I think it's fine. I'm already over it. I just want to move on to 25. If we could, that'd be great. And 25 feels like a much more round number, so I'd rather aim for that.
Also, I'm noticing our video. We have the thing up there. I don't control this. I could probably get in there and fix it, but it says 23 still. So don't blame me.
That's fine. We're living in the past. What else is new?
All right. Before we get into this, let's explain ourselves. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you're watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Ubisoft swiftly corrects Star Wars Outlaws late 2024 release date. This comes from Levi Winslow at Kotaku. Star Wars Outlaws, Ubisoft's upcoming action-adventure game that follows scoundrel Kay Vess between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, previously
Scoundrel.
Yes, right? They're all scoundrels. It's all scoundrels and Jedis. That's all they know how to do. Kay Vess, previously had no release date beyond a very broad 2024 window. Today, however, a Disney Parks blog post quietly announced that it would launch in late 2024. This didn't last long as Ubisoft promptly swooped in to correct the record and reassert the general 2024 timeframe. Over on the Disney Parks website, Director of Editorial Content, Thomas Smith, detailed 24 company-related experiences coming over the course of the next 12 months. You've got a new attraction based on the 2009 film The Princess and the Frog, a theatrical production inspired by the iconic The Little Mermaid movie, and entire days centered around Marvel and Pixar, among other new activities. Buried in the blog post is a blurb on Ubisoft Massive Entertainment's upcoming Star Wars adventure, announcing that the game would come out toward the end of 2024. Star Wars Outlaws, the open Star Wars game, is set to release late this year, the blurb previously read. The game lets you explore distinct planets across the galaxy, both iconic and new. You could risk it all as Kay Vess, as emerging scoundrel seeking freedom and the means to start a new life, along with her new companion, Nyx. If you're willing to take the risk, the galaxy is full of opportunity. This is the kind of thing where I assumed this was probably coming out later in the year. I guess I don't know why Ubisoft is correcting it unless maybe they want to keep some flexibility there. They've said 2024. They're not like saying, no, it's not coming out later 2024. It's actually coming out in 2025. They're going back to 2024. But it's also a game, I suppose, that could come out in the summer or something like that. But either way, I don't necessarily assume that the person writing the blog post for Disney Parks would necessarily have full insight into what is happening with this game. And maybe they made the same assumption that I did. What do you think, Bacalar?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm sure they're fired also.
Oh yeah,
and they were shot.
They're going to work on Bob
Chapek's
Chapek's team. Yeah, exactly.
If they're lucky.
Yes.
If they're lucky.
Yes.
No, this doesn't matter. The only thing I can see being a practical kind of reason that you would want to finesse the language a little bit there is maybe you buy some credibility by saying late 24 that allows you to squeeze into 25. But again, Ubisoft is coming in here saying, no, it's very much the entire year of 2024. Right. It's semantics at best. I think like you said, no reasonable person was thinking this game was coming out before the summer. I mean, come on, this game does not. This feels very much like a November ass game at best.
Yeah, I think there's a chance for it to be like, that early fall game, even before fall, like early September, something like that. Maybe. But I think I'm mostly with you. November seems right. That's probably when this comes out. Ubisoft did reach out to Kotaku when Kotaku asked for a clarification. And they said that a spokesperson said the timing was incorrect and has since been amended. Now, if you go back to that Disney Parks blog, any mention of late 2024 or late this year in the Star Wars Outlaws blurb has been scrubbed away and replaced with a generic 2024. So yeah, I think they're probably just like, hey, we actually had a marketing plan when we were going to announce the actual release timing window, and this scuffs that a little bit. That makes that a little bit muddy, where it's like, well, yeah, you already said it was late 2024 in the Disney Parks blog, but now they haven't. They've corrected it, and they probably will come out eventually in a few months and say exactly the same thing, that this game is coming out later this year. Probably in the fall. How are you feeling about these big IP games? This one seems promising, and it's from Massive that has had that Avatar game is pretty okay. For all the jokes about, oh yeah, this is going to be my game of the year or whatever. I played it and I'm having a okay time with it, and I'm mostly impressed that Massive figured out a way to take this IP that could be very generic in a lot of ways and take a skeleton of a game in Far Cry that can be very generic and somehow make a game that mostly feels like it works and is cohesive. And now they're going to be applying not necessarily the same formula to Star Wars, but they are going to be taking a lot of their skill set over to Star Wars. I think that's pretty interesting, but at the same time, it's like, man, these big studios that had previously been working on their own things, now working on these big IPs, part of me is a little disappointed. How do you feel about it?
I think I'm only disappointed from the point of view of are we getting just basically a Star Wars skinned version of one of these really kind of generic gameplay experiences, which, I think for better or worse, these games, like you said, are competent in a way that they work and they're fine, but I don't know if it's going to scratch the itch for me that I'm looking for in this type of game, or at least the way it's being advertised and marketed. Right. So, I from what I saw early on of this game, I think my interest remains lukewarm at best, but I would love to be surprised for sure. Yeah.
And I'm also playing through Star Wars Jedi Survivor and enjoying that. It's like, okay, that's a really good game in my opinion. So this game will have to live up to that, but it looks like they're also matching that formula as well. You got a character that's sort of on their own trying to survive, and they got a little companion. In this case, it's a little alien instead of a little droid, but it's a lot of familiar things, but maybe there's still a chance for it to be surprising in some ways.
But what do you I guess that's that's what's in my mind too, right? These games are kind of releasing in what feels like a relatively narrow window in terms of game releases, right?
Especially these days.
I think there is a certain polish on EA's game where is it going to be a similar kind of vibe, right? Are you is the sort of threshold, has that been raised, right, for acceptable sort of production value? I don't know. I feel like they're going to feel like different games too.
Yeah, I think they're going to feel very different. I think that the raw gameplay polish of Survivor will be maybe not met by this other game, by Outlaws, but I think Outlaws will feel more polished in terms of fewer bugs, fewer technical problems. Survivor had a lot of issues running on everything. Still kind of has problems running on PC to some extent. So I think, this Ubisoft massive game, they'll have a better chance of like, because they're working in their own engine that they're very familiar with. So I think that they'll have a better chance of putting out a product that, at first blush feels more polished. But I don't think it's going to be in anyone's Game of the Year list. I would love to be surprised, though. We'll see.
Sure.
Hogwarts Legacy is probably the best example there, where it's like, a lot of people liked Hogwarts Legacy, but at the end of the year, it wasn't in that many people's Game of the Year list. I think that's probably, it sold very well, and I think most companies would be completely fine with that, where it's like, so people like it, it sold very well. That's what we're going for. And I think Outlaws has a chance to do that. I think a lot of these big IP games, that's the butter zone for them. That's where they want to be.
Absolutely. That's where they want to exist. Yeah.
All right. Up next, Square Enix will be aggressive with using AI for development, the CEO says. This is also from Levi Winslow at Kotaku. Shout out to Levi. It's just 2 days into 2024, and a major video game company is already talking about its big AI plans. If you thought we were leaving AI discourse behind in 2023, I'm sorry to tell you that we were very, very wrong. A New Year's letter from the current Square Enix president details the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth publisher's future outlook, which includes in, quote, aggressive push to implement AI in game development and further financial focus on blockchain entertainment and the cloud. I know I said they were leaving blockchain behind. They probably are, but very slowly. Square Enix president Takashi Kiryu released a lengthy letter on New Year's Day discussing the past year, the rise of extended reality, that is augmented and virtual reality, and that's a dumb name, and the company's direction going forward. Kiryu's also mentioned AI, saying that while the generative technology carry negative connotations, the introduction of ChatGPT, alongside other software like deep learning text-to-image generators, DALL-E, and Stable Diffusion, demonstrated the potential not only to reshape what we create, but also to fundamentally change the process by which we create, including programming. You could probably guess where this is going. Kiryu wants the company to use more AI in its games, expressing as much a little deeper in the letter. At a certain point, right back, we know that these big companies are going to want to save money by doing things that are basically shortcuts to get to their end goals. I'm always surprised when a big CEO comes out and says, we're doing this because it's not just negative connotations, it's negative results, right? We've seen what AI is actually capable of right now. And I know it's going to get better. It's going to get better and it's going to improve. And sure that like you want to get on that path right now. But when I hear this, I hear these games are going to look cheap. And that's the takeaway here. And I don't get why these CEOs don't understand that's the connotation that people have from this. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, like there's an obvious level of like tone deafness here where I don't understand the barrier that exists between like CEO literacy and like the perception of the audience. I don't understand how that could be. Those two things are so far removed from each other. Where, you have people parading this sort of stuff around, given such a negative connotation with all this stuff. How could these people not know? How do their teams not know? How do their teams not tell them? They have all these like resources at their disposal to be like, hey, this is the most toxic shit we can absolutely talk about. Let us not shove people's noses in it. And that's what they do time and time again. And the Square being the guiltiest of all these people who parade this stuff around. I don't get it. I don't understand. I think like there's an absolutely better way to talk about this technology. And maybe you're never going to 100% sort of like ease the concerns of like job replacement and stuff like that, but you sure as shit can talk about it in a much better way than they are currently doing.
Yeah, and it's people in chat are pointing this out. Obviously, this is a letter more intended for investors. That's
but like if I'm an investor, I'm not excited about AI either because like you know what I mean. Like I don't buy that.
I think some investors are not savvy. I think many people are. Many investors are just regular people. Many investors are keeping their finger on the pulse and understanding that the perception of AI is swiftly changed from, wow, this works, to, okay, we can clearly see the seams and the limitations, and a trained eye, and that means someone who's looked at AI like 4 or 5 times can now spot like, oh, that's AI. I know what AI looks like. That's what it looks like in terms of images. That's what it looks like in terms of written text. And again, I think it's going to make these games feel cheap if any of that comes through in the end product. Now, there are ways around that, and those ways are probably involved having actual humans sitting down and polishing up whatever work the AI does, maybe defeating the purpose to a certain extent. But yeah, I don't get why you're out and proud about this when it's like something that is gonna have to be kind of hidden and might be a little shameful if your games actually come out and feel like they were made by AI.
It's weird, right? Because remember, like 10 years ago, or maybe even longer, I remember this especially around E3, where Microsoft was like going around really talking up this sort of like generative technology that its cloud stuff was going to be able to do with games, right? Like I remember like Crackdown 3 was like one of those games, and that was essentially the same thing that we're kind of skirting around now. But look, for better or worse, like obviously that stuff never really came to fruition, but at the very least, the language around it didn't seem as malignant as it does now, right?
Yes.
Which I don't know how you like sort of like, you know, process that in 2024, but it was not as bad when they first started doing that.
Yeah, and as it went away, it's like now we're stuck with like the remnants of it, and now we have people like Kojima who's going to be like, hey, I'm making a cloud game with Xbox, and like, okay, yeah, you're the person who wants to go figure out that craziness still, so you must have some actual ideas, and if you don't, you'll probably come up with something, whatever, like willing to give you a chance. It's not like this whole class of people who control a ton of the capital saying this is the thing that we're interested in because it'll get us more investment and more capital, because it's the buzzword right now. It's very like these trends, we've been through them so many times before that at this point, as soon as we get like a couple weeks into one and we see, oh, it's going to happen again, it's going to be like blockchain, it's going to be like metaverse, it's going to be like VR to a certain extent, like how VR was early on was very much primed as, oh, that's going to be the future, and had all this investment, and we kind of knew for a while like it'll have some place in all this, but it's not going to take over everything the way that these people are saying. And when we spot something like AI, it's like, okay, yeah, we understand this is going to become a part of how things are made. Let's let the people behind the scenes who are professionals in making stuff already decide what that's going to look like, and not necessarily have the CEO declare this is the most exciting thing that's happening right now. At the same time, this is a new CEO. I'm pretty sure like they have been the one that like from the last couple of years that did these letters about a metaverse and blockchain. And so I was like, I think some people were hopeful, I think including myself, that their tune would change a little bit. And this seems like the same old thing. I don't know why I got my hopes up.
I mean, look, the sort of argument that we talked about a few minutes ago about it being like an investor adjacent messaging, right? Like that's obviously true. And that's a consequence of what you get when most CEO responsibility is to just, secure that kind of capital funding, right? And capital interest and investment. So when that drives the actions of what the sort of agenda of the brand is, like you're going to get these sort of unnatural sort of campaigns as a result. You know, if this stuff is driven by the people who actually make the games, you're just not going to have that this sort of jarring position on things like AI. You would have, at the very least, a much more kind of like, potential collaborative sort of things that you can do with this technology, and not so much of this dystopian like, we're going to fucking make this, replace every last person with a beating heart, and you're just going to be buying, robot made games. Like, no, there's no humanity in this kind of conversation when the only goal of a CEO is really to raise capital. Yep.
Later on in his letter, he did still talk about decentralized currencies linked to the blockchain and the on-demand server infrastructure tied to the cloud. So all of that stuff still on the table for these companies. I think the decentralized currencies, the NFTs basically, and then the Bitcoins, things like that. I'm so surprised that these companies are still trying to make that work after touching the frying pan and finding out that it's hot several times over.
Yeah.
And then coming back to be like, no, there's a lot of money to be made here. What's like, is there? It's completely crashed across the board.
It's insane. It's like, oh, that frying pan, maybe I could put it in my pants. It's
maybe that's what makes it work. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's insane. Like, I've talked to people through a little bit of like, consulting work a couple of years ago with like crypto and gaming, and like literally the only lesson everyone seemed to learn was just how toxic that vocabulary was in and around the world of gaming. And to see it 2 years later still showing its disgusting face is just the most forehead slapping inducing thing I've ever seen. It's like, what's happening?
Yeah. I go back to like the original point I always thought about this. It's like, okay, so the decentralized tokens, the cryptocurrencies, they are something that these companies would not be able to control. So if someone has a customer service problem, you can't fix it. How is that better than just Steam bucks or like PlayStation Network bucks, where it's like, oh, hey, something happened and I lost my stuff. My kid spent something accidentally. Can we fix this? Cryptocurrency, no, we don't control this blockchain. It's decentralized. There is no one to talk to. And here it's like, the way it works today, you call a company and like, yeah, of course we can fix that. We control all of this. That's what people want. They don't want this other thing where it's like you can't call anybody and get things fixed. Like that's just what it once people encounter that, to be like, oh, this actually is way worse than what we already had. And what we already have does everything else that these things claim to do. Digital money that you can buy stuff with. We have that. It's called credit cards. It works already. It's just crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, and there's always been elements of it already, like for decades of like the spirit of what everyone
trading
seems
on
to
Steam.
want.
Like you could trade on Steam already.
Exactly. So I don't understand the horniness to like continue to go back to that very poisoned well. I don't get it. It's in the water supply and like they can't get it out. Like there's not enough people able to read the tea leaves and just be like, this is a thing we absolutely have to permanently pivot away from.
The last thing here, I said that it crashed across the board. That's true of NFTs. Cryptocurrencies are kind of still bouncing up and down. Bitcoin is up a little bit these days, I guess, but whatever. That we see like anything attached to a JPEG or a video or any of these things, all that stuff is in the gutter. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we've got a lot more news. We'll try to talk a little bit more about Switch 2, all that stuff. We'll get to that right after this. And we're back. We're back, and we're getting back into the news, just like I promised. I would never lie to you. All right, here we go. Switch 2 is likely to be an iteration rather than a revolution, predicts analysts. This is from Andy Robinson at VGC. And analysts don't necessarily know much more than anyone else, but I figured this would be a worthwhile topic anyhow. Let's get into it. Nintendo's Switch successor will launch this year and will likely be an iteration of the current hardware design rather than a revolution. That's according to Dr. Serkan Toto, CEO of Tokyo-based games industry consultancy Canton Games, who contributed his forecast for 2024 in GamesIndustry.biz's annual analyst prediction feature. Although the company is yet to comment publicly, Nintendo's next-generation console is widely expected to launch this year, after VGC reported that development kits are in the hands of developers as the platform holder prepares its plans. According to Canton Games Toto, the console could launch at $400, $100 higher than the Switch launched at, and there's a chance that its games could adopt the $70 pricing of PS5 and Xbox Series X. I think that chance is very high. The time is finally here for a Switch successor, even though I could say a Pro model actually did exist, and certain developers were already working with dev kits, Toto wrote. I believe the next hardware will drop in 2024 for $400, and there's a high chance the games will cost that $70 price tag. He also goes on to say, expects this to be an iteration on the Switch, not some newfangled thing that'll be completely different. And to me, that sounds exactly right. Even beyond Beckler, you just carry that momentum of the Switch forward at a certain point. It also falls into basically the tradition of Nintendo at this point, where they have the NES, and then they make the Super NES, and they have the Wii, they make the Wii U. They have the Game Boy, they make the Game Boy Advance. They have the DS, they make the 3DS. They have the Switch, they're gonna make the new Switch. That is what's going to happen here. They've done that a million times before. Sometimes it works. Super Nintendo, 3DS, things like that. And sometimes it doesn't. Wii U. But I think that they think that this is probably the right call here, and that is the right call, right? Does anyone want anything else, Bacalar?
No, this is like it's way more of that moment than it was, I think, for a second Wii, right? Like,
absolutely. We were kind of done with the Wii, right? We like
yeah, and I guess it's easy to say that in hindsight, but I also do think like the momentum that the Switch still continues to carry makes it primed for just a better, beefier, more powerful, and also I'm sure there will be half a dozen improvements to just the general quality of life things that maybe people aren't really thinking about with the original Switch. But that I just think like this thing is going to come out and feel probably in a similar way to like what the OLED Steam Deck felt to the Steam Deck, and just performance wise being the biggest sort of improvement, I think is that'll be the big question and the biggest
point. Yes, I think you're, yeah.
That's the thing, right? This thing really has to eclipse the original Switch by like 5 times, right? I mean, it really needs to improve in that department, and everything else will be fine.
Yep.
Make Joy-Cons that don't drift, make those better, make some of the hardware feel a little bit more premium, and that's what we're going to get with another Switch.
Yeah, it's I think the small murmurings that we're getting out of these developers, we talked about this on the Bombcast yesterday, where a bunch of developers talked to a Japanese publication called 4Gamer about what they expected 2024, and the tone that they struck was, everyone's pretty excited about the next hardware, and some people said the next Nintendo hardware for 2024, and I think there's part of me that's like, man, is this thing going to come out and be disappointing in terms of its power performance? And I think the way that maybe these developers are just like, God, it's so nice to work on something that's just more powerful than the Switch, no matter how much more powerful it is. But I get the idea that this is probably going to be powerful enough for most people. It's going to be powerful enough for most teams that are working on games, and they will make it make sense. I think, again, NVIDIA and Nintendo, when they first struck up their deal, they said, hey, we're going to be working together for 20 years. I think it's very much in NVIDIA's interest to make sure that Nintendo is as well positioned as possible. So they will do the extra work to make sure that a lot of things just work. It's going to be powerful. It's going to have the backward compatibility, and however that needs to happen, and which probably wasn't very simple to make happen. But I think NVIDIA and Nintendo probably worked together and made it happen. And we'll get a lot of these answers eventually. But I think all of that does lead to something that's going to keep developers pretty excited as we get more information about it. How do you feel about the $400 price tag? That also sounds right to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I especially the context of this being an iterative sort of improvement. I don't think it's something you're maybe going to need to go out and buy right away. I think. I'm imagining like maybe some games will sort of have a cutoff where like they're just not going to work on the original Switch, but on the new Switch. But 400 does seem about right, especially knowing that like that's going to be the price for half a decade, probably. Without that changing at all. So yeah.
I mean, if anything, like we saw with the Switch OLED, it went up by $50, so the price might go up over time. I think that Nintendo has realized, and they realized it by never really reducing the price of the hardware, that they could have sold the Switch for more money than they did, and they probably could have got away with that, and it would not have put a dent in their sales in any real functional way. So that'll manifest as at least $400 Switch 2 or Super Switch when that thing comes out. And then $70 games, I think that is also inevitable for this system. Not inevitable, it'll be there on day one, I think. Again, I think Nintendo knows that its games would sell at a $70 price tag because they sell so much better than everyone else's at $60 already. They're like, well, yeah, we could charge $10 more and people are not going to skip out on it for the most part. It might put a 5% dent in there, but we'll make that up in the end.
Exactly.
And Nintendo doesn't lower the prices, so it's like at $70, or they could lower from 70 to 60, and then again that makes them still a lot more money than what they were making already. So I think that's also going to happen. And I think Nintendo will probably have a good idea about how to position all this with like, okay, yeah, like here's why you need to have it. And it probably will come in the form of some very big and impressive games, likely a 3D Mario. But is there anything else that comes to mind that would get you excited for a new Switch?
No, I mean, I think like, I hate to bring up this game in your presence, but I think a Metroid Prime 4
Sure.
is like really the one that'll be an overwhelming amount of like hype and sort of excitement for me. But yeah, like I hate saying this out loud, but yeah, Nintendo doesn't have to do much aside from like the status quo.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be fine.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, that takes us to our next story. Miyamoto has no plans to retire, but is thinking about it in case something does happen, he says. This comes from Eddie McCoo at GameSpot. Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario, Donkey Kong, and other characters and games over his 40-plus years at Nintendo, is 71 years old and has no plans to retire. Speaking to The Guardian, Miyamoto said he is thinking about a succession plan, but he plans to work for some time more. More so than retiring, I'm thinking about the day I fall over, he said with a smile.
Jesus.
In this day and age, you have to think about things in a 5-year time span. So I do think about who I could pass things on to in case something does happen. Miyamoto went on to comment on his legacy, saying he is thankful there is so much energy around the things he has created. They've been cultivated by others. Other people have been raising them, helping them grow. So in that sense, I don't feel too much ownership over them anymore, Miyamoto said. Miyamoto may one day retire, but he believes his work will be remembered. There is a scene in Iron Man where the president goes to his home company and the guard man doesn't let him in. And he points at the portrait and says, "That's me," he said. "But I really hope that the teams I work with at least remember me as the creators of these things."
That's like sad and cute and adorable.
Sad and cute and adorable. It sounds like Miyamoto. In 2011, Miyamoto told Wired that he was planning a soft retirement and that he would step down from his current duties and shift to a different role within Nintendo. That sparked a lot of buzz and discussion and triggered some level of panic about Nintendo's share price in some circles. But this in turn prompted Nintendo to issue a statement denying that Miyamoto was retiring in the traditional sense. In 2013, Miyamoto told GameSpot that it would be strange to not think about retirement given his age. Back then, Miyamoto and Nintendo management were internally planning for the day when Miyamoto no longer works at the company. What I'm doing is pretending like I'm not working on half the projects that I would normally be working on to try to get younger staff to be more involved, he said at the time. Over the past decade, Miyamoto has spent more time working on non-gaming projects at Nintendo, including the Super Mario Brothers movie and Super Nintendo World theme parks. That seems like what's happening instead, right? Instead of him retiring, he's just transitioning to taking what he's already built in games and finding ways to express that in these other places while other people are coming up and actually taking over control of the games and have been for many years. And that sounds like a pretty decent idea of like, okay, that forces the Nintendo to figure out what to do without Miyamoto in terms of making games, while Miyamoto could take his creative energy and actually build something new that someone will have to take over. That's a pretty good idea, I think. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think there's nothing sounds better to me for Miyamoto than just like hanging out on movie sets. And well, I guess no one hangs out on a animated movie set, but just living in that world, which is, animated films are not as, I guess, easy to kind of pull off as live action.
The Zelda movie's a live action movie, so he might be on the set here pretty soon.
Yeah, like to me, that movie production is without a doubt an easier ride than game development. So just let Miyamoto enjoy his golden years here and in that capacity. And I think that's what's going to be best for his quality of life, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that original time when he talked about retiring back in 2011, and I do remember now, yeah, that's right. There was a drop in the stock price because people freaked out like, no, Miyamoto. But Nintendo has clearly understood for a very long time, Miyamoto's not always going to be there. And I think they're like, Miyamoto's already like, hey, for many of these things, I'm not here right now. Zelda has been Eiji Aonuma's thing for decades now. And Miyamoto's always there in the background, but I don't think he's even in the background in the way that like George Lucas was in the background of like Return of the Jedi, right? Where it's like
standing behind people, right?
Yeah, being like, okay, yeah, when we have a question, we're actually going to go ask George. We're not going to ask, I can't remember who, Mark Wan, whoever directed Return of the Jedi. No, Eiji Aonuma and Fujibayashi, these guys are in charge of Zelda and have been for a very long time. And I think that there's even like a new generation coming up underneath the people beneath Miyamoto that are now taking things over. And we saw that with Mario, right? Yeah.
With Wonder.
With Wonder. Yes, exactly. There was like four people who worked on the original Mario still worked on Wonder. But the whole story about the development is we let everybody come up with ideas from all across Nintendo and come work on this Mario game. And that is them figuring out how to ensure their future, right?
Totally. And it obviously worked. It worked better than I think anyone could have imagined. And that's how it's nice to see it happening where like there is this generational handoff, if you will.
Yeah, and like even Pikmin 4, like Pikmin was like one of the last franchises that Miyamoto was like, this is my baby. That was outsourced to Aiding, which is a work for hire studio. And yeah, all these work for hire studios that were working with Nintendo work with Nintendo producers and things like that, but that producer was not Miyamoto. I'm sure he was involved a little bit, but that things had already been set up so that they could pass the baton. And I think Nintendo is in the position where they are going to be able to attract the most talented people, especially in Japan, but throughout the world. It's going to be very similar to how Disney has worked for a very long time, where it's like, hey, yeah, why do Disney parks or why are they so much better than all these other parks? So, well, they attract the best engineers because they want to go work on the coolest projects because they grew up admiring what Disney was doing already. And I think Nintendo's going to have the exact same arc going forward, where people are going to want to work at Nintendo because of what Miyamoto did, even long after Miyamoto's gone, and they're going to want to replicate the kind of creativity he did. So they don't have to worry too much about that stuff. And in the meantime, like, yeah, he gets to work on these movies. He says, he goes on to say in this story here that he's reading a lot of scripts because he's trying to understand like how to take Nintendo magic and apply it to movies. So you can just imagine, like, I don't know if he's reading like a bunch of pitches for Zelda. Maybe he's just reading Shane Black scripts or something. Like, oh man, all right, Lethal Weapon. Okay, this is how they made that. The Last Boy Scout. Now I get it. Now I know how to make a Zelda movie. But I do like the idea of him. But I'm like, yeah, I want to just to take these skills and apply it to one or two more areas. And Super Nintendo World, it works. The Mario movie, it worked. I think the Mario movie could have been better, but they're going to have chances.
Certainly.
It was definitely better than it could have, or way better than it could have been, right? It could have been so much worse in so many ways.
Sure.
So I think they have a lot of good things going. A lot of their ideas are working. And Miyamoto retiring at this point feels like they wouldn't miss a beat anymore, right?
No, it would be fine. And yeah, I guess at the same time, I was thinking while you're describing like all the other things that Nintendo is getting its hands into, it is still mind-blowing to me that it really took this long for there to be this kind of blockbuster Mario movie for better or worse.
Yeah, I think it was obviously they were scared off by the first one. I think then they also got distracted by the huge success of the Wii and the DS, and that enabled them to be like, hey, no, we make games and that is our bread and butter. We're just going to keep focusing on that. And then with the Wii U, they looked around being like, okay, how come we are not extracting value from these properties in other ways? And that was like one of Iwata's last things he did before he died was like, hey, we are going to expand into all of these other areas. We're going to take our IPs, we're going to license them, but we're going to work very closely with partners in Hollywood and in parks like Universal. And that's going to be how we're going to make more money. And that has worked so far. So yeah. But it's surprising it took as long as it did. All right, next up, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown is estimated to be a 25-hour game.
Oh, wow.
This is from Liam Doolin at Nintendo Life. While January isn't always the biggest month on the video game calendar, this year there are already several games to look forward to. One of these is Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, a new Metroidvania-style take on the classic platforming series. If you're wondering just how much bang for your buck you'll be able to get from this one, according to Game Informer, this new adventure is estimated to be roughly 25 hours. It's not entirely clear if this is just a main game or a completionist run. However, the length of each playthrough depends on players' skill and the amount of exploration. As a reminder, there's a demo of The Lost Crown arriving next week on the 11th of January. The full launch of the game will then follow on the 18th of January. So we're just a couple of weeks away from that right now. 25 hours, even for a completionist run, Backlar, for a Metroidvania is a lot. That's a big game. I'm like, yeah, people playing Hollow Knight is like 40 hours, sure, but I'm like, I think of like all the Castlevania and the Metroid games, and you could complete those like 100% in like 10 to 15 hours, really. I guess your first playthrough would probably be closer to 8 or 9 hours, and then cleaning things up. Yeah, you'd probably get you to 15 hours. 25 hours seems really big, but at the same time, this is Ubisoft. I think they're used to making big games. I think at a certain point, they're like, it needs to be bigger to justify what we're doing here. I get how this happens, but how does it make you feel, Bacalar?
I wish I didn't know it. I wish I didn't know that. I want to unknow that.
It's kind of the same, yes.
When you talk about our game time in that 20, 30 hour sort of like category, I get intimidated.
Yeah, sure.
Especially for the style of game that the new Prince of Persia is. I'm hoping maybe that is just like the hardcore, like you said, 100% playtime sort of thing. Where's this also coming from? Look, we'll see. I mean, maybe, I'll be happy to eat my words and find out that like, oh my God, this really is this amazing thing that you want to spend this much time with.
Sure.
Would love to have that happen. But on esse face, 25 hours seems like a surprising amount of playtime.
Yeah, Jesse in chat points out that they overestimate the amount of time it takes to beat these things a lot of times when you're talking to PR, and that wouldn't surprise me. We find out that's the case. 25 hours though, still, like, even if that's what they're saying, and it really takes like 20 hours to fully complete. That's still big for a Metroidvania, but I played the game. It is very, very good. And it seems like it has a lot of cool stuff going on. And the way that like the setup is, hey, you're on this team with these like 6 or 7 other people who are badasses, and you guys all go out and do badass stuff together. And then, of course, things happen. And now those are the bosses you have to go search the world and take on. And I could see it's like, okay, if each one of those has like a 2-hour level, you could probably get up to 14, 15 hours pretty easily. So yeah, we'll see. We'll have that game in our hands here, and like I said, it's coming out the 18th, so 2 weeks we'll have that, and we'll know for ourselves. Mickey Mouse game is changing its name after anti-Semitic accusations. This comes from Kenneth Shepard at Kotaku. If you haven't heard, the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse is officially in the public domain, and Nightmare Forge Games wasted no time announcing a horror game starring the version of Disney's mascot called Infestation 88. However, upon announcement, the team was met with immediate pushback regarding the game's title and premise, with folks specifically accusing it of being an anti-Semitic dog whistle. For those that don't know, 88 is code for HH, or Hail Hitler, within the Nazi movement, as H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. The game focuses on killing a monster version of Mickey and dealing with a rat infestation by using gas, and the Nazi movement has used rats as a stand-in for Jewish people in its propaganda. All this threw up too many red flags, and Infestation 88 was immediately met with suspicion that what looked like a horror game was capitalizing on Mickey's public domain status was actually hiding something much more insidious. This did not occur to me when I first looked at this, but
No.
We start like, hey, yeah, people. 88 is definitely something that's like, oh yeah, right, that's that thing where people were trying to hide their weird stuff about Hitler in there. They are changing the name, and they're saying they didn't know. But this is a tough one. Where at the very least, they have to kind of go out and like prove that this is not what they were trying to do, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I haven't really dug too deep into this story. I think at the speed at which they were like, whoa, like this is not what we wanted to do, I think is maybe you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, but maybe that is a sign of like, okay, maybe that is an honest mistake. Right. I don't know. Also, you're keeping this game a secret, right? Because, of the
you don't want to get the cease and desist while it can still happen. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just finding excuses for these possible Nazis. I don't know. But like on its face, if I'm just looking at the details that have come out, that's apology, pull the walk back right away. Like, okay, maybe it's board.
It's a possibility that they're line stepping though, right? Where it's like, we're gonna step up that line and we're gonna look like we're gonna be a baddie. We're gonna be naughty. And it's like as soon as they get slapped on the wrist, like we weren't really doing that.
Oh, Jesus, I haven't thought about that. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, and that the kinds of people that would use 88 in that way are definitely the kind of people who are line steppers, and they're like, we're poking at you, we're prodding at you. Again, we don't know. They have changed it.
We don't know.
But at the very least, hey, this criticism is the kind of thing where people need to be considerate of it and think about it and think about how the game is being presented. And I don't get their explanation about it being set in the 80s, other than maybe that's kind of what FNAF maybe looks like sometimes, where it's like, oh yeah, big animatronic animals chasing you down in the back of a party zone or whatever. So it's going to be set in 1988. It's like, oh, okay, but this is Steamboat Willie from like 1920s. What does that have to do with the 80s?
Yeah, why are those 60 years apart? What does that even mean? Like, why would that be a thing?
Yeah, I'm with everyone who's suspicious, and
sure,
I'm ready to give an ounce of a benefit of a doubt. But I'm also like willing to hey, let's have people look a little bit more into what these people are all about.
And it does suck that like this thing that would normally be not that interesting is now getting a bit more of that kind of attention in a way that just we're not sure how to feel about it. So yeah.
Exactly. And I will read their statement here. They said our game Infestation 88 is set in the 1980s with the year 1988 chosen simply due to its symmetrical design and the game's artwork logo. Unfortunately, we were unaware of any additional meanings the number 88 has. However, after learning about this, we're changing the game's name to Infestation Origins. We apologize for our ignorance on this and appreciate that this was brought to our attention so we could address it ASAP. It's tough, but at the same time, this is a cheap cash in and it's not that big a deal. It's not important, right? It's like going to be a thing that we're going to forget about in a year. So
definitely not registering on the important scale. That's for sure.
All right, so let's move here. Jack Black is becoming too powerful and will star as Steve in the Minecraft movie. This comes from Michael McWhorter at Polygon. Actor-musician Jack Black continues to be Hollywood's go-to guy for video game roles. He'll play Steve in the upcoming Minecraft movie, according to reports from Deadline and Variety. Black joins actors Jason Momoa, Daniel Brooks, and Emma Myers in the live-action adaptation of Mojang's massive sandbox game. Black, of course, starred in last year's billion-dollar blockbuster adaptation of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise as the voice of Bowser and the crooner of Peaches, just one aspect of what made him the best thing about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Black also stars in the upcoming adaptation of Borderlands as Claptrap.
But that's never coming out.
Come on, let's be real. But he was also in 2 Jumanji flicks, which, video game related.
They did 2 Jumanji movies?
Yeah, hey, that first one, the first reboot is really, really good. The second one's okay.
I've heard that. I didn't know they made another one.
Yeah, it was really, really successful too. So it was like inevitable. They did a second one, which I don't remember liking as much. I kind of forgot most about it.
Okay.
Maybe it's good, but yeah, they made 2 of those ones, 2 of them, and Jack Black was in both of them. And then of course Jack Black has a history of being in games. He's close with Tim Schafer. He was in Broken Age, Psychonauts. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I didn't know about that. Huh?
Wait, what? He did what?
I don't know. According to Michael McWhorter, he was in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Maybe he has like a character voice in the new one or something like that.
Oh, okay.
He, obviously, then he was also what's that other Tim Schafer game? The metal game.
Oh, Brutal Legend.
Yeah, Brutal Legend. He was Officer Dick in the remake. Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
That's very cool. Hey, this is also neat. But also, do you think a Minecraft movie also ever comes out? I'm like, we've heard about this one before. I think the last time I heard about it was years ago, where it was going to be directed by Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, from Sunny.
Yeah, and then that fell through. And hey, they're going to work on it. They have another project going, another Minecraft project. Now they got a bunch of actors attached. I still am like, I'm 45% sure this is going to come out ever.
I mean, it sounds like so Jared Hess, right, is attached to it.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yes, I don't know. I don't really love Jared Hess either. So
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of lukewarm. I think like you get, I don't know. Once a name like Jack Black is attached to a thing, along with a director he's worked with before, maybe there's a little bit more stock to put into this sort of thing. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just also such a no-brainer that this should be a movie.
Oh,
that
yeah.
maybe it's just too big to kind of fail.
Yeah, I suppose it has to happen eventually, right? And it probably will. Service Kane also points out Jack Black was in an Atari 2600 Pitfall commercial as a kid, and that is true. Yes, I've seen.
So
that.
It's his destiny, is
Yeah,
what we're
basically,
saying.
yes. All right. I'm trying to think that there's anything else I wanted to cover on this. That Borderlands movie. We have not heard much about that for a while.
That thing seems to just be like buffering or something. I don't know. They're still rendering it out. I have no idea.
Do you think like Kate Blanchett's like, man, I kind of hope it never comes out. She's in that movie. Kate Blanchett's in fucking Borderlands.
Yeah, and so is who? Well, it was Eli Roth, right? He directed it, right?
He did. Yeah, that he was definitely involved. Right? I mean, God, who? I just feel like looking it up. All right, let's see. Borderlands movie.
Well, and Jamie Lee
casting
Curtis
crew.
is also in it, and I feel like she's recently won an Oscar, and now is she like, hey,
yeah, Eli Roth directed it.
Maybe you don't release this movie. I'm joking around. I don't know. I don't know why it's stuck in this sort of like post-production hell.
Right.
Someone is not happy with it.
Right. So they were filming it. We got a look at the set during that digital E3 in 2021. Yeah. So it's 2024 now. It seems like quite some time, but we'll see. I bet it does reemerge in some way this year.
Of course, it's too much of an asset to just be written off, I think, at this point. I will say this, like, just anecdotally, I know of like a lot of things that have sort of been shelved pre and post writers and actor strike. So there's like weirdness there too. I'm not saying they're directly related, but I do know of stuff that, like, you know, assets moved around a lot before and during the strike as well. And who knows the machinations of why something like this could be held up.
Yeah.
I think it's a reasonable assumption to wonder about the quality of this thing and who maybe people are, you know, not happy with its current position. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see, saying Craig Mazin worked on it and had his name taken off. Craig Mazin being the guy that worked on Chernobyl. And then
I think I heard
The Last
about
of
that.
Us.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's never a great sign, but
it's not. Yeah. I'll say this. There's not a lot of positive details that would lead anyone to have any sort of like enthusiastic take on this. Right. That's for sure.
Yeah. We'll see. All right, finally here, just a PSA. Recording explicit Baldur's Gate 3 romance scenes may get your Xbox account banned. This comes from Jason Finelli at GameSpot. Building up a romantic relationship with a companion of choice in Baldur's Gate 3 will earn players an intimate scene with the chosen party member. And if you're on Xbox, be warned. Recording the scene could get you banned from Xbox Live, as one member of the game's Reddit community has reported. Reddit user Daddy Vegas shared his plight on the BG3 forum as they said they recorded 3 separate videos of particular interest in the player's character camp. How many videos do you need, buddy? As is routine, the videos were uploaded to Xbox's servers after capture for sharing purposes, but when the uploads were completed, each video was reportedly marked as an infraction. An accompanying image on the Reddit post shows each of the active suspensions earned by the 3 separate incidents, and then the first video earned a 4-day suspension, with the second adding a 22-day suspension, and the third adding a 366-day suspension. An appeal has been sent to Xbox, according to the post. As the author remarks, they are hoping the appeals process fixes this. This seems like an oversight, but is it like, do you think it's like boob and penis recognition technology? I don't know.
I don't know either, and I feel like if the game is spitting it out, like, you should be allowed to.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it works on Twitch, even, right? Where Twitch is like, hey, you cannot show your butthole on here. Don't ever show your butthole. But if it's part of the game,
it's part of the game.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? You know, like I like flag it as like adults only or something.
Sure,
but
of course.
And also, I love the name Daddy Vegas. I do not like Las Vegas.
I am down for Daddy Vegas. Absolutely.
But Daddy Vegas just resonates with me in a way that I'm not really prepared to speak about.
You know that guy could show you a good time. Like, we go to Vegas, be like, I don't know if I can have a good time here. Daddy Vegas would make sure you had a good time. Daddy takes care of his own.
Totally. So I'm very excited about Daddy Vegas in the future of Daddy Vegas. No, but like, yeah, this seems silly. If the game spits it out, let me record it. What are we doing?
Come on, let's be real here. They should fix this. Xbox, better fix this. This is stupid otherwise. You could play it on your Xbox. You just can't record it using the tools built in for the game that you're selling and making money off of. Don't be an ass about it.
If it's a problem, just fix it. Just
fix it.
Make it go away.
Okay, let's see here. Yeah, I guess Jesse points out you could record, you can't upload to their servers. Yeah, but the server upload happens automatically. You have to turn that off. Like, just mark it as adult. Just mark it as put it behind an age gate or whatever.
We know it uploads automatically. We know it's a just fix it. Just fix it.
All right, that does it for the news. I don't think I did a poll question. People can remind me, and we can talk about it tomorrow if I did. But I don't think I said we're going to be on such a long break. It doesn't make sense. So no poll question to go over now. But I do have a new poll question that we will get to in a moment. In the meantime, Backlar, what do we have going on the website this week?
Oh, there's all kinds of things happening on the website. We're going to actually do a today later, right? I believe you're playing at the new Avatar game.
That's right. We're doing GB plays for Avatar.
Closing in on the final episodes of Blight Club as well. We'll be doing voicemail dump truck tomorrow. I think we have a TNT scheduled as well. And then Friday, of course, we'll do our Revengeance, a UPF, and much, much more.
Yep. We'll get all that to you guys this week. GMMs for the rest of the week. For Avatar, I think we're starting at 12:30. Is that what we said? I have the calendar here. Yes, 12:30. Maybe closer to 1. We'll see how it goes. And then Blight Club will be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll go right into that from Avatar. So we'll see you all pretty soon for that. In the meantime, that poll question, it'll be up on youtube.com/giantbomb, and just go to that community tab there. You can find, do you want Nintendo's next console to be an iteration on Switch or something completely new? You can vote for that. We'll talk about it on Game Mess Mornings on Giant Bomb tomorrow. Bacalar, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff Grubb, for having me on my very first appearance.
Well, you actually woke up in time, so I figured, we'll actually get you on here. Yeah.
New year, new Game S mornings.
That's right.
I'm loving it.
I'm loving it too. Thanks everybody for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. All right. Okay, turned off YouTube.